White House and the Republican Party, the majority, the vast majority of it, they're having a little bit of a civil conflict, the internal conflict within the Republican Party, but very few are actually fighting back. Probably like 5 Republican politicians are pushing back. Excuse me. So, if you've been paying attention, Trump has first of all, he's just an idiot, but all he's doing is performing an old-fashioned trick from gangs. Gangs do this. This is what the mafia has done and continues to do in impoverished communities. This is what the gangs that they're portraying to go after do in their home countries and here, which is we're gonna harm you unless you pay us. It's that simple. It's a protection racket. The mob for years has used this tactic to make money. So how does it work? It's simple. You send your goons, a team, out in the community, into the businesses, and you tell them. These goons tell the businesses in your community, you're going to have to pay us every week this amount of money or this percentage of your business. It's usually an amount. And if not, we're not going to be able to protect you from the thieves and people robbing and breaking up places and stuff like that. And usually the people who rob and pillage and break stuff are their own people. They have one crew that goes and intimidates people so they can collect this payments from the community, and then they have another group that goes and beats people up and robs people if they don't, robs the people who refuse to pay. Okay, so that's how that protection racket works. He's doing the same shit to United States companies and companies abroad. So he's playing both sides. So he's saying, okay, we're going to put a tariff. He put tariff on uninhabited islands, for God's sake. How's how stupid these people are. So, in the meantime, what happens is, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but they've been bullying news corporations and media corporations by suing them for giving negative coverage or just telling the truth about how fucked up Trump and his cabal of fascists and Nazis is. So they sue them, and like they did with George Stephanopoulos, I think it was ABC or NBC, they sued them because Stephanopoulos rightly criticized the abhorrent nature of Trump's policies, and they said they were going to sue them for libel and defamation and blah, blah, blah. They caved in and gave Trump $15 million. They could have won the case, but they decided to bend the knee. They've done it to people, Rachel Maddow. They've done it to everybody who talks negatively about them because they're doing abhorrent things. So this is a shakedown. How is it going to work? How does it work? Well, he puts tariffs on everyone, on everything coming in, allegedly to help U.S.-based companies or U.S. companies, allegedly to help, quote unquote, help develop manufacturing in the United States. That's not going to help manufacturing in the United States. Matter of fact, it's all this back and forth when tariffs creates uncertainty. And when you create uncertainty in the business community, that is kryptonite for investments. Why? Because it's uncertain. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You're not going to put out $5 billion to build a manufacturing plant, if you don't know what the fuck's going on. It comes back on, off, on and off. That creates uncertainty. That tanks the market. And so far, it's been the largest loss of market value in the United States history in 2 days. What was it, $7 trillion in 2 days? It's a massacre. There goes people 401k says, "Oh, I can wait till it comes back up." Yeah, but the people who are retiring now, who are in gazillions of baby boomers retiring right now, are fucked. You see? So, and not only that, what do you think how do you think it works? It doesn't work. Okay, now we got tariffs. Now tomorrow they're going to invest $5 million and build it in 3 weeks. They're going to build the factory. That doesn't work like that. First of all, you have to do viability studies. You have to see where you're going to install that factory. You have to procure, you have to get the permitting. You have to do logistic studies. You're not just going to say, okay, just pick a place and start a factory. It doesn't work like that. You have to pick the right place that has the right infrastructure to supply the supply chain you need. Whether it is, let's say, American manufacturing jobs for the automotive industry, which is where I work at. If you look at any part that you buy, it all comes from outside of the United States because the United States corporations decided to go and put a factory, not one, thousands of them in China to manufacture the alternator that I'm about to go install, because they're paying $1.50 an hour in China or something like that, versus here it will cost them $20 an hour. Now, mind you, it's not that they can't afford the $20 an hour. When they had jobs manufacturing stuff in the United States, and let's say parts in the 80s, they manufactured them here. They were way less money, and as soon as they moved it to China, it cost them 10 times less to produce. Yet they double or triple the price of the parts. It's greed. It's full-on greed from the manufacturing companies. They want to get all of the money. They don't want to pay They don't want to pay the American worker, the U.S. workers. They don't want to pay the salaries, and on top of that, they want to triple, quadruple, quintuple the price of their whatever they're manufacturing. So it costs them 10 times less, and they sell it for 500, 300, whatever, 1,000% more. Okay, they can bring manufacturing here and make a profit, stay at the same price, and pay good money, but they don't want that. And on top of that, they pay their politicians. You see all these tech companies and all the manufacturers, whoever, big companies. Whenever they go to the inauguration, to the fascist asshole we have as a president, they all go there because they fund the campaigns of the politicians. So the politicians, especially the right-wing politicians, give them, not only allow them to, charge this outrageous price, they give them tax-free. They don't have to pay taxes. They pay 10 times less in manufacture, take the jobs out of the United States, and charge 5 times more, 500%. More than what they used to charge when the parts were manufactured in the United States. It's absolute greed. And then they sell you shit parts. Okay? I mean, go ahead and install an alternator from Amazon right now. They give you 30 day warranty. You can't return it. It's a 30-day warranty on a piece of shit alternator. The guy doesn't pay, Jeff Bezos doesn't pay a penny in taxes, and with that same money, he goes and launches himself into space for fun on weekends with his buddies. That's what's going on. In the meantime, you and I get fucked because, first of all, they're not going to bring the jobs back, and the only one who are going to, how the racket works for Trump and Musk and his allies is, he's going to sell them carve-outs from those tariffs. So now, if you're a corporation And I bet you anything that Elon Musk is getting a carve out from those import taxes, because they're buddies, and he basically bought himself a presidential power position for $270 million, and they just got caught trying to funnel a $400 million check to Elon Musk, who eliminated his competition and also fired the people who were investigating him for his corruption in his companies. So Trump is going to sit there, and the corporations are going to come to him and say, hey, what can we do to get us a carve out from those, meaning so that those tariffs don't apply to my companies? They're sure, no problem. You give me $1 billion, I'll carve you out. You understand? He's going to do the same shit with corporations outside of the United States. So he's going to sell carve-outs through those tariffs to the highest bidders. You understand? In the meantime, guess who's going to end up paying those shakedown fees? You and I, everybody. And we're paying it right now. I don't know if you go ahead, go to a parts store right now and go buy a part. It's not like next week or next month or in 6 months the parts are going to start being manufactured in the United States. That's not going to happen. They're not going to bring back those. And not only that, a lot of the manufacturing jobs require highly trained people, especially in tech. You're not going to all of a sudden just go to the neighborhood and find somebody that's already trained in how to operate this facilities. A lot of the manufacturing is done by robots nowadays, but the manufacturing of small part stuff, like phones and stuff like that, is done by slave labor. And they're not going to bring that over here. Let me give you a story. You go look it up. I'm not making this shit up. Foxconn. Foxconn is a gigantic corporation who manufactures in China. They manufacture the phones that we use. And they are so horrible in their treatment of their workers. They have basically slave labor camps where the workers live in some building in communal, like a jail, and they go from the factory to their building, which they're in the same compound, and it's basically like living in a slave labor camp. Some of them develop deformities in their hands and their fingers from dealing with all these little tiny parts all day. And some of the workers started committing suicide during lunch break. They go on lunch break, they climb on the roof of the building, and they launch themselves to kill themselves. And instead of improving the working conditions for the workers, what Foxconn did, they installed fucking nets around the goddamn buildings. I'm not making this shit up. Go look it up. Read. This is horrendous. These are horrendous, manufacturing corporations. And these corporations are not going to give up their taste for cheap labor so that their executives can go buy 10 yachts, which, by the way, are tax exempt under the Republican tax code. So you see, it's all mafia-inspired racketeering, what the Republican Party is doing. And first of all, these tariffs are illegal. You can't. This guy is acting as a tyrant, as a monarch, as an emperor, as a dictator. All this stuff is supposed to go through Congress to be approved. But this guy and his cabal of fascists have perpetrated a coup d'etat against the United States democracy, and they've circumvented successfully. They've perpetrated a coup d'etat, and they've stopped constitutional authority over the spending. of the United States purse. Him and Elon Musk. So, and his cabal of fascists, the people he has installed who have written the Project 2025 textbook for a fascist or a oligarchic control of the population. They're openly destroying the United States democracy and the United States Constitution. So, and while they're at it, they're installing a racket. So pay attention, because that's what's coming. And remember what I told you about the protests this past Saturday? There were massive protests around the United States, and they're going to get worse. They're not going to stop firing people, and they're going to wait till there's civil unrest. People start getting violent in the streets. They get desperate. And it's coming now where the supply lines, the supply chains, pay attention, because you're going to start seeing shortages of product, even food and stuff like that. Pay attention to the shelves. They're going to get thinner, because now things are more expensive. One orange is $1, and it's going to get worse. So it's a double, triple whammy now, because now they're getting rid of all the labor who supplies the work for labor-intensive industries like agriculture and manufacturing and construction and all those things that immigrants provide in the United States. Houses are just going to go through the roof. But what I believe is going to happen, and hopefully not, but I think they're pushing for it. I'm talking about the Republicans at the top, the people from the Trump administration, the cabal of fascists who are running this country right now. They're pushing for civil unrest so they can send the military, declare a state of emergency, and suspend the Constitution, just like Nayib Bukele did in El Salvador. So pay attention. I think that's what's coming. So, I think people are talking about a civil war. I think inevitably there's going to be some type of uprising, and unless the members of the ranking members of the Republican Party rebel against the fascist MAGA, Nazis in power, and decide that that's enough, that they're going to stand up for democracy and the Constitution. Unless they do that. See, but the problem with that is they're scared, because they know that Trump and his allies are already asking for violence against, openly putting wanted posters against the judges who are ruling against them. In a rare rebuke, Justice Roberts went public and rebuked Donald Trump's attack on the judiciary. But that's not going to stop him, because it's going to take brave people in the Republican Party, and we're going to have, the Democrats are going to have to, go full on attack against their sellouts, mainly Schumer. They're going to have to remove them from power and stop playing softball, and they're going to have to start playing hardball. They're going to have to join together in an impeachment, and I'm talking the Republicans and the Democrats. They have to. If they don't, I'm afraid the United States democracy is over, like it is right now. Because let's say all people say, "Oh, we'll go to Supreme Court," and the Supreme Court orders it, they'll do it. They don't have to. They can say, "No, we're not going to follow the Supreme Court's orders." And the Supreme Court says, "Okay, we'll hold you in contempt." nothing's going to happen. The Supreme Court, in order to enforce a contempt order or any arrest warrant, which they can't issue arrest warrants, Trump's got immunity. The Supreme Court fucked up and gave him immunity. But the problem is, if the judiciary issues contempt orders, they cannot issue criminal contempt orders. They can issue civil contempt orders. This is based on an article that I read from a federal judge. And they can decide, say, okay, we're not going to follow your orders. How can the Supreme Court or anybody in the judiciary enforce their contempt order? They have to use the U.S. Marshals. The U.S. Marshals are under the control, under the orders of the Nazi that's in charge of the United States Attorney General, Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi is a full-on Nazi cult member who follows the Trump cult orders. She's not at the service of the people of the United States. She's at the service of Trump. If you've seen her go out there and attack the judges who have issued restraining orders and injunctions against Trump, you know what I'm talking about. So, what's the solution? The solution, again, I say it again, you need people from the Republican and the Democrats to get together and be brave and stop this madman. And they're going to have, this is not the end. If they succeed in impeachment, if they succeed in impeaching this person, they have to do constitutional amendments to rein in presidential power, to push for constitutional amendments to rein in dictatorial powers of the next person, whoever it is. Because if not, U.S. democracy is over, and then we're with a constitutional, there's no crisis, there's no constitution, period. And we're stuck with an oligarchic dictatorship. So I don't see a peaceful way out of this. I hope not, but it's going to need brave people from both sides to save us from the devil. Brave people. We need brave people. That's all there is to it.